Okay, so for our last item in code along 3.1, which in this case is 3.3, our part 3. I want to transition us into our next code along concept because it's really helpful once you understand how to set up modules for JavaScript. Because as we can already see, as I move back to our code base so far, my code, and I'm guessing yours should be pretty close, has 63 lines in it. And yeah, I mean, if we take out the comments, which by the way, at the end of this one, I'm going to show you a way we're going to actually do that in a sense. Not take them out, but kind of use them. Anyway, you'll see. But more importantly, is to think about that this code base is going to grow, right? Because in this first part, we're only looking at 4 inputs. And we're going to do much more than just handle those inputs and clear that form. We're going to calculate footprint. We're going to output some things. So as our code base grows and encapsulates, which is probably not the best word here, but includes much more functionality, we need a way to manage it. And modules in JavaScript is just that. Okay? So what we're about to do is the beginnings of what we'll end up working on for the last part of this week, which is actually handling the form module with the module. And you'll see once we get there. But this is just that last step on 3.1 to just set it up and give us a moment to talk about it. Okay, so in here, and I already have opened the instructions here, right? So we have, in this case, we're going to create a new file. And so this file, formhandler.js, okay, will be created at the same level that we have the app.js. So I'm just going to do a little something and copy it. And what we'll end up doing now is first set up the module, describe the pieces that need to be in place for a module. But basically, you're going to write code in this file that will be imported. So we import into the app.js and we export from the form, in this case the module, because we'll end up through this development process to have several modules that we'll use. Okay, so just for today, I'm going to put, because I'm going to actually put part 3, right? So this part 3, I'm going to put here. Ooh, well, I'm going to do this and put it here. So at the top of this file, I'm going to put implementing the form JS module, form handler JS module. So in our instructions, right? So this module, let's go ahead and put this one as well. This module is going to handle the getting of input values, which is a very important job from the form, and clearing it. Okay, so when we think about it in that way, we have 2 functions in our app.js, handle form submission and handle form clear, that do that for us now. So we're going to take that functionality, move it over to the form handler ultimately in next week. In the next item. But for today, we'll just set up what's required. Now, one of the things here, because now we're dealing with 2 files, is I like to split it. And so in this case, I'm actually going to put the form handler over here. Okay, I'm going to kind of make my environment a little bigger, but have everything that I need to have open. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and by the way, let's add this as well, because in this case we're only going to be handling ultimately in the handler as the household size, okay, which is what we're doing now. But we're going to expand that and handle the rest of them in the 3.2 place. Okay, so what we want to do in the app.js at the very top right here is I'm also going to put this just for us to note here, because the first thing we're going to do is some code that, oh, there we go, that will actually import star, and this is as form. Now this is a variable we're setting up. It could be anything, but it would make sense to name it what it's doing, right? Now we could talk about the fact that we're using form dash handler And there's actually a term I need to look up I had seen that denotes this type of naming versus the camel case that we've been doing, and why one is better for file names and one is, of course, better for coding. But in this case, I just want to note that I understand that it's not consistent if you think, well, why shouldn't we name our files that way? And there's just reasons from a file perspective. So now we're saying import everything from form handler. Now we know there's nothing in here except comments, which is fine. We're going to see it, but I'm going to do single period forward slash actually looks at the current folder that we're in. Okay, so we're in the W3 folder, so it immediately looks in here and it understands, hey, are you importing this file? Now we don't have to, but we are going to put .js at the end of that. Okay. So adding this would then give us access to a variable in our, and the other thing is this module is also scoped. It's got its own scope. That's why we have to both export, which you'll see in a minute, and import from the two files. Okay, so over here, we're going to end up writing two new functions in our form handler. Okay. So let's do it. Let's do it now, and we're going to modify them. We're going to say get form input, okay? And I'm going to say inputs there, okay? Oh, so actually we've been writing, that's right, we've been writing traditionally named functions. I write all kinds, so I have to remember sometime, oh yeah, for this class we're writing these. So I'm going to do console.log, okay? I'm going to just say get form inputs. Okay. Now we're going to have another function. Okay. And that other function we're going to have is const, and we're going to say clear form, not from, clear form. Okay. This is going to be equal to a function. Okay. And again, for today, we're just going to do console log, right? Clear form. Okay. So now we have two functions inside of our form handler. We have an import on our main, I've called it main, but app.js. Okay, so we know right now we've at least told the app, hey, import that, and we know we have two functions. So I'm going to move over to my output. I believe this is the current one because I've started it a couple times. Yep. And notice just by hitting refresh here and doing that code, I'm actually getting an error message. Okay? And it says you can't use import statement outside of a module at app.js. It's like, well, wait a minute, isn't that what we're trying to do? And the answer is you can, but you have to do one additional piece that is way important that may seem minor when you see it. So let's go into the index file. So what you need to do here is actually do type equal module. Okay. So in this case, in our organizing index.html, which fires off everything, right? Fires off our JS, fires off meaning it loads depending on how we have it set. It also brings in our CSS, right? So in this case, we have to tell it, hey, this app.js now is a little different in that it's importing, right, something from another JS file. And the reason we can do it this way, and I don't want you to write this, was so we don't actually have to do another module. Okay, that would be form.js. Because that's actually, I couldn't figure out why it wasn't finding it. That's funny. Don't write this. I'm just showing you, we don't want to write this. We want to be able to allow the app.js or some other pattern based on what we're doing is to handle this. And by the way, the type module actually also does a defer, but we also keep the defer there because it's just kind of backup. It's just making sure this is going to wait, right, until the DOM is ready. And we're going to do DOM content load, so you can see all the ways we safeguard how this happens. So let's just adding that now gets rid of the error, and I'll just make sure of this by hitting refresh. Okay, So if I come down here, and by the way, if I tried to set a breakpoint here, no, look what happens. It actually won't let me set a breakpoint here, because at this point it's just part of the JavaScript where it's going through it's interpreting. That's how JavaScript is handled. It is a interpreted language. So because of that, right, when I try to set a breakpoint here, it goes to 12. It's like, no, here's the first place you can set a breakpoint. But by even doing that, and I can hit refresh, I can already roll back up to this handler, and now we're saying it's a module, right? And if we go over and look, we're like, okay, we have a module, we have two functions, so now how do we reference those functions that we've now written, okay? And this is where the corresponding to the import, so we're importing the JavaScript file, but now what we have to do over in the form handler is in front of the function or whatever we want to import into here, we have to do export. So we add the export keyword in front of the function, okay? Now, so again, once this runs, once this imports, like I showed you before, it was only a module before. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this run. And right now it stopped again here, but now as I go back and roll up to form handler, I can see the two functions, okay? And now, right, now I can actually call them, but I just have to understand how to reference them based on the name that I gave it here. So let's actually do that. So imagine, right, this get form inputs is going to be done inside handle form submission, because that's part of what we're doing. Matter of fact, remember, this line right here was what we were doing. This JavaScript line is what was referencing the input value, right, and setting its block scope value. Now, in this case, we're going to end up having this collect the form inputs, and then we'll end up returning a value to here. You'll see that next week, okay? But for today, what I want to do is come down here, right, and we're going to say form handler. So we're going to reference that new variable we have access to dot. And notice how, in this case, the editor is like, oh, hey, because you've defined this input and you've done the export and you've set up the module, now I can see that that denotes that form handler a module. And by the way, I noticed there are some functions there. Which one do you want? So in this case, I'm going to say get form inputs. And I'm going to run it because this is not a callback. This is a standard function call made different only in the sense that we're handling it from the module reference. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, so let's go ahead and let this run. I'm going to go ahead and run it again. Okay, so now, and think about where this is at, right? So it's right here. Right? Now, in this case, we know that there's some other things going on in here. 3.2, we're going to refactor this to allow the form to handle it. But for today, I'm just going to set a breakpoint here. And if you wonder, if I hit refresh, why isn't that stopping the execution? Because remember what it looks like when you stop execution. And I will remind you of this because sometimes it's just hard to reason about here, is that these are attached in the init function, and they're setting their waiting. So these event listeners, okay, are waiting. So if I hit calculate, come back up here, calculate footprint, then that will call this function, boom, and then I'm setting here, getting ready to execute the JavaScript in this line. I hit step, and now you can see what happens. So execution then moved from the app.js to the form handler.js, and I'm in that function. So now I'm just going to output something, getting form inputs, okay, and if I hit step, it just goes back. So it just that's what that reference is doing, okay? The form handler is the reference into the module that allows us to call those functions. Okay, let's actually end up, do I have any other content here? Right, import. Okay, let's say, let's get this one, okay, which is, and let's put this in the app.js so we know under here, okay, good, that's there, right? Tells JavaScript where to find the module file, which is great. Okay, we've added this. And by the way, you could also put this in your index file just to remember. And we might do it here. And command, for me, command /, then I could place that content here. And you should, right? Just so you know all these things, because we've been doing it, but I actually haven't. And I actually said just clear form. We ended up doing both, right? And then updating with module. Okay, so which one did we put? Updating script tag to add module. Oh, yeah. I guess, did I have that twice? I might have had it twice. Okay, so now we've at least noted all the places. So let's actually end up now with the second one, right? So now we have called our get form inputs. Right? Oh, it looks like I have this left over from writing it before. So this is good. So this is what you want to do, is call form function from form handler, and then we'll call it right here. Okay, so now we'll see this one in action as well. So just make sure you write that line. I didn't actually do that because I already had it in there from playing around with the code before, but let's go ahead and see it run now. I'll let this go ahead and finish. Very cool. I'll remove this breakpoint. I'll set this breakpoint. Again, if I hit refresh, it's cool, but really I have to activate that breakpoint. I have to hit calculate. Clear form. Just wondering why it didn't fire. Oh, yeah, why didn't it fire? Maybe. Well, let me try it again. So this is where your troubleshooting comes in. It's like, wait a minute, let's make sure I got everything. Let me go ahead and do this. Evidently I did something in the last thing that I did. Clear, this is in here. Clear form, I didn't name it correctly. Clear form, just to make sure I typed everything correctly, which it looks okay. And that button should have, and by the way, this is this is real-time troubleshooting, and you know, part of me thinks, oh, I should drop this and not show what I'm trying to figure out, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Okay, so I do have a click event listener on there. Why is it not triggering? Okay, that one looks okay. All right, I'm going to pause and figure it out. I'll be right back. You know, this is really good to understand because it can happen. This is not the first time I've had this happen where I had to drop live server. And what was weird is it worked a minute ago. I didn't change any code from the time I paused. So this is really good knowledge to have. Sometimes when you're like, if you're looking at the code and you're like, you know what, it looks really right, I don't see anything wrong with it, just as a troubleshooting step, stop live server and restart it, because that's what I ended up doing just now. I'll show you this. We'll just go ahead and let this run through. Could. And then we'll set it again just so you can see that it does indeed fire that function and then calls the clear form from the handler. Okay, yeah, I love that. Okay, I don't love that. I wish it actually didn't do that, but that is the nature of development sometimes. Okay, so that's what we've done now. So we've collected. Right, so we're going to collect for this phase. Actually, I think I'm not going to have you put these lines in here because we're going to end up now actually copying. So let's actually do this. So now that we have this implemented, again, we're going to write the rest of the code in 3.2. So for this one, I'm going to have you do a step that I think might be helpful going forward in some ways. Let's see. Kind of what we did in week 2, where I had you make a copy of the app.js, because that's where most of the things are happening right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. Okay, so I'm going to go into my no, that's right. I was in the right one. I was thinking for a moment I wasn't in the right repo, but I actually was. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it app3-1js. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I've actually already done this. I'm going to show you this, but I'm going to have you actually take this prompt that I'm providing you. Okay. So you can take this prompt, right, which is basically refactor the provided JavaScript code by making concise summary comments, right, before the function and the DOM references. So where we've been putting these comments to help us navigate through the file and note specific things, I still want you to have that detail, but also to have a summarized version of this. So here's what you're going to do, and I'd already done it, is I went to whatever one I like to use, right? I copied in that whichever LLM is your favorite, and then I copied in that app.js content, right? And so whatever comes out of that, and I don't have all of it, but you will have all the code we just wrote, which we didn't write a lot of code for this one. You'll paste in that code, and then what will come out is, in my case, and again depending on the one you're using, here's my code, not changing the code but adding more precise comments. Okay, so this will now, okay, so let's actually do this correctly so I don't, so I would take all the code in the app.js, should have done that first. I'm going to copy it into here. Okay, I'm going to come back over here, I'm going to select, which I already had, and I'm going to paste that, right? So now, notice, I have a lot less lines because those comments were taking quite a bit, okay? So now I'll do my last step. I did give you a couple things to research in this case, which is the explanation of explain what a module is and why it's useful. Okay, describe the export and making code available. This is stuff we saw today, but I want you to extend that. And then what the type module, what does do in the index. Now in this last one, actually this will be covered next week, so we won't have to do that one. I will have removed that. And then you'll do your last commit, right? So you'll do your last commit for this 3.1. Make sure you do your version control and push, and then provide your commit history for, 3.1 up here. Okay, all right, we'll move on now. Well, you'll move on to doing your checkpoint, and then I'll move on to preparing 3.2, which is writing what we need to do in that module to handle the form. Talk to you later.